Okay, so there you go. Now you know we are being recorded. There you go.
I'm thrilled that you have joined us. You know, this whole idea of how we fill the gap for kids experiencing poverty in our community has just been on my heart all week. And so, you know, we really had to go back and look at, for us, we had to go back and look at the principles and the values that we taught in poverty alleviation, because we got off to a start that says this is how we always do things. We go get the professionals and the experts, and we do that, and oh, did we talk to the people? Maybe, kind of, sort of. So anyway, so we got challenged a little bit in that, but we want this conversation to be rich, and we really need your ideas, and I think we have some things that'll help us move forward, and I just want to see a powerful movement in Snohomish County. So, you know, of course, I go to my Message Bible for my my foundational scripture, and wow, you know, God is, he really knows what he's talking about, just in case you didn't know. And so in 1 Timothy, he says to tell those who have the world's wealth, this is a message, tell them to go after God, who piles on all the riches we could ever manage, to do good. So he piles on riches so that we can do good, to be rich in helping others, to be extravagantly generous. If they do that, they'll build a treasury that will last. And I take that wealth to mean those of us who have our needs met, not Bill Gates' wealth. So that puts me in that category, us in that category. And I think the conversation we want to have is about being extravagant, not being just enough, but what would really make a long-lasting difference in the lives of the folks we're walking alongside of, and that God has called us into ministry to, and how do we impact our neighborhoods in a powerful way. So we're going to give you some initial information that we and Brandy came up with, and you'll see Brandy says throughout our thing, because we went to her to say, tell us what's happening with your kids, give us an idea of what that looks like, what we might have forgotten. And guess what, you guys? Here is, you know, the most wisdom you're going to get tonight. There were things we hadn't thought of. We talked to teachers. We talked to professional social workers. We talked to each other. And guess what? We still missed some things that were critical in assessing what are the barriers to making this full experience for. Somebody said something? Did somebody talk to me? Anyway, so we're going to jump in, and we want you to feel free to ask questions. You may have already kind of formulated what you're thinking about doing. If you have, we think that's fantastic. We hope that we add some insight, information, perspective to that as a group, not just us at EGM, because we're really at the mission. We're really trying to work this through even with our kids. Because they're going to have a challenging time in a shelter, confined with even less space than a lot of folks. So this conversation is not about just kids in homelessness. It's about kids and families in poverty, and how the coming school year is an extra strain on them for a multiplicity of reasons. So I think we're going to jump into that first slide, because we have lots of things to go through.
All right, let me bring that up. Hopefully, yeah, you are. So that's just we didn't call this a springboard chat, just to reinforce what Sylvia's saying there. We called it a work group, because we want a lot of dialogue tonight, and we hope you've had a chance to think about it. And maybe some of you are joining us for the first time in this particular conversation. You know, this is obviously about supporting students' education in our neighborhoods, and just that conviction we had that this world is changing, and there are many kids out there who have access to resources, and the changes may not impact them the same way. But for those who have limited resources or are living in poverty, these changes that are happening are deeply impactful on their families, and of course deeply impactful for years to come, because it's going to affect their education. So that's the theme and the focus of our conversation tonight. Well, let me make sure I got, okay, here we go. So This is one of Sylvia. Some of you have maybe seen this in our Poverty 101s. It's a phrase that Sylvia repeats often, and a really beautiful phrase. Access without support is not opportunity. Right. So we can say we want to give great opportunity, but if we're not walking alongside individuals with that support, or even if we have access but we don't support them through that, it's a formula that, you know, you have to have access plus support equals opportunity, or at least equals the option to have that opportunity. And then Sylvia, remind me what that verse is there. That's
That
everyone knows that verse, and we just wanted to reiterate that verse again from James
so
2:17.
that's our verse about God talk without God action is outrageous nonsense.
Yeah, we just love that
God
translation.
talk
God talk.
without God action is outrageous nonsense. Amen.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Anything you want to say about this, Sylvia, in terms of this quote here? You want to share with
Well,
us?
I think we're going to talk about those two things. We're going to talk about how do we give people better access, but that we, in alleviating poverty and our call from God, is that we're called to do the support and to do that with all the knowledge that we've gained over the past few years. And that's what we want to try to do. It's a different way of looking at ministry.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so we've got our conversation tonight. We're going to break it into 3 discussions.
Oh, John, Dan has his hand raised.
Oh, thank you. Look at that. Dan, go.
I'm going to be using that in my sermon this weekend, so I want to give the proper attribution. Is that you, Sylvia?
Which what? Access without support?
Yeah.
I stole it, but you can say you heard it from me. I stole it.
like everything in all my sermons too, so thank you.
And you know what, Dan, if I were to change anything about that quote, I would say may not be opportunity. There are people who succeed with very minimal support. But in general, you really need to see any ministry as you not only give the transaction is in the giving of the thing, whatever the thing is. The support is the relationship part. And what we've come to believe is that the relationship part is as important as the thing you deliver.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And look at that, it's already changed.
Oh,
we're doing this a different way than normal. So
that's me, Dan. That right there is me.
yeah, there it is. There it is. Great question, Dan. All right, so three parts. We're going to look at kind of starting up. Let's work on some solutions together about how do we get ourselves ready, get our faith communities or any communities we're in that we can influence, how do we get them ready to support their neighborhoods and our kids in our neighborhoods, and ultimately getting those kids and families ready for this new school year in this new COVID world. So that's the startup. And then we've got, then just how do we do ongoing support once the year gets going? And then the third discussion we're gonna do is in the idea of the traps or helping without hurting. Like, what are some of the things that we can fall into that in our desire to help might actually hurt? And just some reminders that we want to go through as we're thinking this through. And again, these are not complete lists. They're just to get us started and get us thinking. And you're going to see that because here's our first slide. I'm not going to read this for you. I'm going to give you a second to read this, and then we're going to talk about what's missing, or we're going to talk about your questions you have about what's on there. So yeah, take a second, read through that. Again, this is about getting kids ready for school as we think about what they're going to need to do, assuming school is going to be remote this year or some sort of remote school year.
Some sort, yes.
So this is a thought about, okay, what are the physical resources that they're going to need to be able to do that?
And I would say while you're looking at this list, to also, if you have a question about why is that on there and why is that important? And I think those are good questions too. Okay, that's enough time.
Okay.
I want to hear what they have to say.
All right, what do you think of the list? What's missing? What needs to be adjusted?
Or what did you not expect to be on the list?
Yeah.
So I will say for me, I didn't think about a camera on the computer. It didn't even dawn on me that was important.
I would agree that that was probably one thing that jumped out for me, but the rest of it makes a lot of sense. As an adult who shares a house with 6 other adults in the COVID world, several of us trying to work from home, one thing is physical space. There needs distraction-free space, whether it's a COVID world or not. Students, you know, you need a flat surface and a chair and not to be bothered.
Ah, excellent. Excellent. I also, Dan, along with that, I was surprised somebody else on the team brought up having a headset. That when you have to use, you know, talk the way I'm talking right now, if you're in a household where there's a lot of activity, being able to have that piece. And I say that the reason this list, we're talking about this right now is because sometimes at the mission, people give us the minimum to get by. They will bring us a computer that was from 1922 and say it's still working. And your people ought to be glad to have what's still working. And one of the things we talked about was being extravagant and generous because of the outcome you want to achieve and the value and the worth that you want to convey to these families. So I'm just going to throw that out.
Oh, it says here broadband with signal strength, solid signal strength. What are the resources parents need to get them started? That's from Jill.
So is the broadband the internet, John? Is that what?
Yeah, that's internet. Yeah. Yeah.
I did.
Making sure.
And Jill, I did read about how some people do have access, but it's not strong enough for some of the lessons and things that they have to do. So making sure that's adequate. I know there are services, I know, is it Affinity or Comcast or whoever, that for low-income families, they provide it, but I don't know at what level. So that makes sure they can do their schoolwork. So, you know, even agreeing to pay the difference, whatever that difference is, if they're already paying it, to agree to come in and upgrade it so that they have maximum bandwidth, it makes sense, right? That's a small thing, but it's certainly significant. I didn't think about that either.
Well, and I think that the more computers you get too going on the same grid is going to slow down their ability to stay connected. You know, it slows down your Wi-Fi. So if you have, you know, 4 or 5 kids all working at the same time, you're going to have, and mom and dad are working from home too. That's going to be problematic as well for the academic process.
So John, would you share what Brandy said that also is happening with that?
Yeah, so this was interesting. Brandy we were just talking about the need of computers, and she says, you know, I have 4 kids at home, and they gave me 1 computer between the 4 kids. The school system that she's in provided 1 computer between her 4 kids, and just the idea of there's multiple problems with that. Obviously, if you've had multiple kids who need to do schoolwork, oftentimes they want to do it at the same time. The other problem is if they need to be in the class at the same time. How are they going to be in the class at the same time and share a computer? And if you're in a lower income family, you might need that computer for the parent to support them, the child's, each student that needs to be in that. So she was just pointing all those things out of what am I going to do if their classes are scheduled at the same time. So she was just articulating that need for having multiples. And, you know, I was sharing, you know, I have, my kids are home, and that was the first thing my wife said was, oh, every one of them's got to have their own computer. We're not doing this computer share. It's just too difficult and creates too much conflict when they're trying to get their work done. And then, you know, maybe they forgot an assignment and they've got to get that in, and then suddenly that somebody else is on the computer. So it's not even extravagant to think of each student having their own computer. It's really is a critical baseline need.
I would also add Jill's comment. What resources parents need might be some kind of a specialized tech support, where a parent just knows, maybe it's a district employee or, you know, whatever, volunteer, but, you know, there's maybe a boilerplate kind of, here's how to set up your kid with this sort of a thing, and a specialized tech support for parents.
Yeah.
I'm just so you know, I'm not typing that down because it's on our next list. So we've got some parent support stuff, and it is on there. So good lead in.
Well, I love having something that sends out that kind of tells them how to do it. So that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Peggy said, school districts need to use the same platform that all teachers use. Peggy, talk to me a little bit about that.
One second, there you go. Sorry, you were muted, Peggy. Go ahead and start over again.
Well, going based on my grandchildren last spring. Can you hear me?
Now
Yes.
I can.
Yep.
Okay. My daughter was complaining to me about last spring when her kids were all at home, and she has 4, that each teacher was using a different platform to present the material, or I'm not really sure what it was, but she called it a platform. And so this year they're going to try to have everybody using the same platform. It's easy for the parents to be able to help the student get on and find their assignments and that sort of thing. So if it's just one platform per school district, it would be easy for parents to help out. Whereas if every child's teacher has a different platform that they're using, it's very difficult for parents to support the student.
Excellent. So those of you who know what a platform is, could somebody give me an example of a platform?
I'm a teacher, so I can. So for example, in March, when we were thrown into kind of surviving online, we hadn't had any professional development on any platform. So a platform is something like Google Classroom or Office 365, or there's one called Schoology, there's one called Canvas. So like Everett Community College uses Canvas, Mukilteo is going to use Schoology. Everett School District has used, I'm not sure, actually, I'm not going to speak to that. I have a kid in Everett and a kid in Mukilteo.
Okay.
But it's how you decide to deliver your information, kind of the push out system. And I think you're spot on. It has to be, sorry, we're going to have a visit. This is why I said I didn't have childcare. So my kids are,
That's fine. That's fine.
You're good.
but as a teacher, this is high stakes for me. So thank you for doing this, by the way. It exactly has to be one platform, because what happens is, you have parents who then can't assist, and they're trying to manage. It was awful in the spring, but we didn't have time to train teachers and teach at the same time. So I think districts are all pushing on to that.
So it may be, Marcy, that districts may have, or different schools may have different platforms still, but a school.
I don't think the districts will. I think every district, because it was recommended by OSPI that each district adopt one, and it was recommended that many did not use Google Classroom because it's anyway, there are different reasons. But so I think now you're going to see that being a decision made from the district head offices.
So
like Mukilteo is using Schoology.
Gotcha. So it seems to me like that's a resource need, that if you're going to be a liaison or walk along somebody, you would know that platform, and somebody on your team would be able to help parents with that platform, right? I'm sure there's some techies that have been laid off or hanging around that. I'd be glad to be the person who would do a Zoom. I'm out to the end. I'm sorry. It's so critical for a parent. Because you know, people like me, what the crap is a platform? And you want me to know 3 of them? I barely can navigate what I'm doing. So that I think as a ministry stream, I hope somebody's hearing that is such a strong ministry stream to do that. Okay.
I would say where it says printer, paper, and ink, I wouldn't say no, but I would say it's far less important to have those physical things, and more important for parents to know about the advocacy of telling a teacher, I need you to mail me the packets. I think what happens is parents don't understand their rights. I have 2 special needs boys. And so I think, too, just a simple phone call of saying, I don't have access. Can you put it in snail mail? And not just because you don't have access, but you don't have repleting, your funds. And teachers are so willing to just put it in the mail. And also those kids who just need hands-on. I don't know any kid that just learns with technology.
Yeah.
So
and do schools have the resources for those mail packets, or is that another place? Is that another gap ministry?
I don't feel like it is. Of course, schools are doing this a lot of this with funding that we don't really know where it's going to come from just because of things right now. But I know that, and my boys are on IEPs, so the legal law is different. But I know that even for I teach advanced college courses in high school, and I know that I can go into school, make copies, and I have a budget to send them out.
Okay.
But it's per request. So it's just one of those things where part of it is in the physical resources, having the advocacy tools to know what you can ask for.
So John, does that go in that section about physical resources, knowing who and what to ask for? So somebody who is,
I'm going
Okay.
here. Yeah.
you know, we're jump around, Marcy. We can do that because we
Okay.
can. This is our chapter. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah.
So I like that, the whole idea of knowing who and what to ask. And I love when you said that they have rights. There are things that you can ask them that you're not asking for a favor. You're asking for what to do your student in this school district. That's real important for advocacy.
Right.
From that MARD identity perspective, we feel like we're asking for a favor. We feel like you're asking to do something special. So I love this idea of know what you can ask for and what you have a right to, and there's no shame in that. So I think that's important.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm so glad you brought up what you did, Marcy, because there's so many important things about opportunities, and we hope, and I know Sylvia stressed it, but I just want to jump in and stress it again. We hope you hear the opportunities for us as laypersons or churches or communities that care to support. So, we heard the importance of knowing what the parents' rights are in your community, that you could become a volunteer parent advocate. And why is that important? So let me share a little bit about, we have a nurse on our facilities at our women's campus. And that nurse has been there for a long time. She comes on, it's a partnership with the center. And years ago, we had a child that went into the doctor with an earache. And the doctor just didn't listen to the mom. And the mom was not at that moment well prepared to advocate for her child. And so that child's earache got worse and worse. And if I remember right, it actually was a tooth infection that was growing worse and turning into a pretty serious medical condition. And out of that, we realized that when we're dealing with individuals that are coming out of trauma and experiencing trauma, having an advocate that can come in and walk alongside those parents to advocate at the doctor level. Because, doctors are busy, they're doing their things, and sometimes they're not necessarily the most compassionate at that moment. And we love our teachers, but we're going to be asking a lot of our teachers over this next year. We already ask a lot. And so there's going to be a lot they're going to be juggling. And so the more we can do to support our teachers and advocate for our parents who are going through this stress, because if you're experiencing poverty and suddenly your kids are home and all those things you were previously dependent on and utilized are gone, you're building this new life without necessarily the resources you need. So learning to be an advocate and then walking alongside them as an advocate is a great opportunity for us as volunteers in our church.
So Jill has a question. It says, how about information about homeschool so families have more information and access to choices? The rest of it is computers that meets the requirements of the platform. For instance, Zoom doesn't work well on iPads. Right on, Marcy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So a little bit more about the question on homeschool. Can you give us a little more, just what homeschooling options are, or what are we asking about there, Jill?
People might not know about homeschooling, what it is as a concept, what it takes to do it. And for some people obviously believe that is a choice for themselves and their family. And, I think maybe they should know about it, because maybe what's being offered by the traditional public school and their new online system might not meet the needs of where they are at this time.
Okay. So learning to understand the educational options for families around you.
Yeah, and I guess that's the parent advocacy part. Just it's an option for education that many people don't know about. So they should have information to make choices for them, for themselves, which one works better.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's good that they have the homeschool option. I really would want us to think about how that's approached, because families under stress who think that that's the Christian option or the one that they ought to do, because I think it's a great option. I mean, but I just, the approach to that one, I would really want to think about that. I'd almost want to be something that I'd want them to bring up. Oh, because I mean, it's not that no one's haven't heard about homeschooling, but I wonder sometimes if that can feel like an extra burden that I should be able to do this. And incorporating that in, if you're a working family, that would almost be impossible. But even if you're a stay-home mom and you're feeling like you ought to be able to homeschool your kids, whatever you think that means in your head. So yeah, that's all my comment about that. Okay, I know we have lots of chat going on. Suzanne, is there something else? No? Okay.
Nope, we're
So one more
we're good
thing.
there, yeah.
So I just do think that we need to,
Thanks, Jill.
that we do need to put on with the computer, John, that we need to look at that the programs are going to meet the requirements of the platforms that the kids are using in each district. So that might be something that we want to start talking about, so that we can make sure that the computers that we're purchasing are going to meet the requirements of the district that they're going in.
That's good.
And then, and Jill says, I hear you, Sylvia.
I saw her. I saw her.
Okay.
So
All right.
we're on the same page. I love what you guys
And
have
can I
added. Thank you. Go ahead.
Just one thing about the computers too, and I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a push in of computers outside of the school district, but I think like Mukilteo was not one-to-one, Everett was, and so Mukilteo did a whole lot of work to get one-to-one as much as we could. So I think at least in Mukilteo and in Everett, kids are given the actual physical device. It's the broadband. So specifically, it's just really about advocacy. It's about filling out the form to get the computer in Mukilteo, and then they actually are given them once they're registered as a. So just so you know, in those two districts,
That's
they
really,
should be.
that's important. So Marcy, I have a question. I know we've been hearing that the schools have given out computers and they are finding a number of them in pawn shops. Have you heard anything about that? And what is the school's policy about replacing because kids don't get to go to pawn shops and pawn computers. So I'm just curious if you've heard that being a problem, and is the school willing to replace, have it, or what if they're thinking in that might be?
So they have a really good replacement policy for broken things, because they bought a lot of insurance, they need it.
Okay.
As far as lost or stolen, I don't know. But it should be a pretty easy find through each of the, I my own self have not heard of that happening, but I can totally see where it would happen. They're nice computers.
Yeah, and we talked about a little bit in our group about that's one of the risks that if we do happen to give a computer, we take, and about really having enough relationship to be able to talk about what else is going on that you would risk this lifeline for your child, because maybe we can talk about how we meet that need, right? If you're really swapping it out for utilities or food or gas or whatever, can we talk about that exchange in a way that says we're supporting that also, right? So not just sending out money, but simply being mindful of what's going on, not what's wrong, but what's going on. So
I just put that on the chat.
oh, I'm sorry.
Not what's wrong, it's what's happening.
Okay,
That's awesome.
So I know we've heard from some Christian folks, what about them selling it? And so I just want to say, risk we're going to take for the kids, if that's what's necessary. Sylvia's opinion. Sorry. Okay. All right. What time is it? We barely got through.
We're gonna keep moving.
Along.
This is why we gave ourselves a half hour extra for this discussion. Hey, Dan, did you have a question? I saw your hand there.
I was just going to say that may be an opportunity on the pawn shop issue, an opportunity to partner with law enforcement. They work very closely with pawn shops And we can, the word, if we're talking about hyper local, there's only going to be so many pawn shops in an area, and they could easily be let in on this. It's like, hey guys, watch for this sort of thing.
Wouldn't
And,
that be great?
yeah, so there's potential for partnership there, perhaps.
Well,
Yeah.
well, Dan, here's an interesting. So in that partnership, it's almost building a partnership with the pawn shops. And maybe you said this and I missed it, but if this happens, would you give us a call so we can help that family out? You know,
Yeah.
not at a legal, let's figure out what's wrong, but okay, here's just, this is a flag telling us there's something that we might be able to step in on.
Yeah, and they generally will work more closely because they have to with law enforcement, and so that's kind of the liaison end. But like in here in Marysville, we've got an embedded social worker program, school resource officers, and a really good relationship that we could network them in. It could be really beneficial.
Good.
And
Okay.
you know what? It's redemptive. It's redemptive instead of punitive.
Yeah.
It's redemptive.
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome.
I
All
get
right. Well, hey,
excited.
let's we're gonna move on to just the second part of, we're still in getting started. Before we get there, so this is a question Sylvia said, we just had to share this with you all. We are not resource light, we are innovation light, and this is really just thinking about kingdom resources. And we have more than enough resources in this country to solve this and address these problems. It's not about the funding, it's about how innovative we can be. And how can we be innovative in this issue? And that's just the inspirational thought of the day. And here's some stats. You want to go through those, Sylvia? You want me to go through those?
Well, we were just thinking about the resources, about how many schools are there in Snohomish County, serving how many students approximately, and of those students, how many are considered food insecure that we consider at the poverty level, and then saying the resources of 281 empty churches. Just think about that. If we could even get a third to say we're going to do something with our facility or with our congregation that is significant, what would that do for our community?
Yeah, so here's a link that Daniel shared with us a little earlier about some churches are planning to host students during remote learning. Now, I can't tell you the legality of this in our state. And so obviously we all want to be very wise about how we are addressing this from a COVID perspective, but how the churches are even more empty than they've ever been during the week right now. I mean, they're an even more underutilized building than they traditionally were. And so there's lots of opportunity there. And we'll be sending all these slides out when we're all done. And we have a link to, this link is on our resource slide at the very end, but just wanted to share that with you today, that we can, in our church facilities, even get creative about how we can use them to love the neighborhoods they're in.
Amen.
That already have Wi-Fi, that already have a strong signal, that already are doing streaming, that are already doing all those things.
Have space to distance.
Yeah, and have volunteers potentially in them that even not only can support the students, but could say, hey, if you're struggling, or if you as a parent want to get together and learn what your rights are, we've got somebody who did that work and wants to share with you what they know tonight, and get the parents together and even do a Zoom chat or whatever. But see, just realizing we have the resource, we just need to get innovative about using those resources that God has given us. All right, let's keep moving here. So we're still
comment about my emoji. I mean, I thought she was really hot.
Oh yes.
Mr. Hazen, you disappoint me.
All right, that's
we call it Super
right
Sylvia.
We still got it, dude. All right, so family engagement and support is another thing to think about. So not only do we have student needs, their physical resource needs, but we also have a family that they come in. And we wanted to, a little bit when we think about family, remember that's not just what you might traditionally think in your head. There's many individuals that are living with grandparents, that are living with guardians, that are living with two-parent households, one-parent households, aunts and uncles. I mean, there's a whole gamut of different family structures out there. And realizing as we're engaging in this, what those family structures might look like and how we can become more informed on how to support those different kinds of family structures. If they have unique needs, maybe not, but learning that is important. They have to have a means to communicate. Go ahead, Sylvia.
Well, I just wanted to say, when I'm looking at the means to communicate, it is asking the question, how should I communicate with you? Because some people are much comfortable with text than they are with an email. So it's even asking that question initially and not assuming, an email relationship or a Zoom relationship initially. It may be, oh, I like text, or, you know, I like phone calls, whatever. But I think part of this is asking the question and not assuming we know.
Well, and making sure that those parents have adequate access to communication, be it email and the software, because the teachers are going to use a lot of tech to communicate now, and keeping the parents in loop on that tech and making sure the parents are ready to do that. And, you know, so not only do you have the student learning new systems, you have the parents learning new systems that are going to be seeking to support their children in that, and those that are caring for those kids. So here's some other things of just considerations. You know, there's childcare, there's finances, health, transportation.
Could you explain childcare?
I would be happy to explain childcare. Well, what do you guys think? Why would we put childcare on there? What do you think?
I think of a toddler losing their mind while you're trying to walk your fourth grader through new math on a computer.
I heard somebody else trying to jump in there. Who else tried to jump in there?
Oh, I think, you know, with parents working, just because I think about, you know, and part of the other discussion about a parent having like 4 kids at home that they're supposed to try to keep up with, and the fact that they might be working, and how do you do all that?
Yeah.
And then I have one other question with the means to communicate. I'm thinking about language barriers as well.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of different languages spoken in school. So how to help with that support, you know, that's another.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's great. If I spelled that right. I feel like I didn't spell that right, but you know,
You did.
I'm going back to school myself.
correctly.
I like that, the chat message that said teachers have the same problem. Teaching.
Oh, that's great, Jennifer.
Right?
Absolutely.
I got that. Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, part of this discussion about support is teacher support too. Is there a way? So that's whole nother ministry piece, right? Is there a way that we can support teachers? Teachers.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we heard, if you have, Jill, sorry, I think I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Well, for family and a level of family support is, how do you organize a school day at home? Like, how do you have some boundaries, or how do you help, you know, yes, they are empowered to have a family schedule or, you know, something so that they can all work together. So that's part of a communications, but also involves all the different varieties of family members and adult members and caregivers. As yes, there are ways to help organize time and have some boundaries so everyone can work.
Yeah, and that gets back to that space, boundaries. I mean, a lot of that structure is something everybody's having to figure out again. And Emily, thanks for sharing that. She was just saying she's gotten some inquiries from other parents of being able to support them, and it sounds like you know, possibly babysitting or caring for kids, figuring that out together. I mean, it's interesting how the world is getting smaller. You know, we're growing smaller, and neighborhoods and communities, and this idea of it's going to take a lot of us to make this work is really, really true. Yeah.
So did we capture all that? I just want to make sure you captured all that somewhere, because all that was really good.
And then also Shay is saying also kids who are homeless, living in shelters, cars, hotels, you know, so they don't even have homes. So how, you know, I know that the liaisons will work with that, some of that, but who's going to help support them? That'll be the other question too.
So that's another ministry stream, right? To those that work in encampments and hotels and
I just thought I would jump in real quick since that came up. This is another link that's in the resources, but it's dedicated to schooling and COVID, and they have this question of homeless education in the news, COVID-19 and homelessness. And so they're asking some of those questions of people who are experiencing homelessness. How do we identify that? How do we support that? So this is another great resource for you to go out to and check out and learn from as we go forward. And like I said, that's going to be in the resource page toward the end.
So Erin, please. Hi.
Hi. I just had a question too about, is there any plan to have almost like a tutoring network or something when a parent can't explain algebra. That's frustrating. Who do they reach out to? Or you Google it, but sometimes you just, another voice, you know, if that's, you know, an ally who really knows how grammar, whatever it is.
Yes, yeah.
We're going to get there. Give us one more slide, and then we're going to get to that's going to be the ongoing support of once they're back to school. So we're still thinking about just what it's going to take to get this. We're going to get there in just a second. So I don't want to miss any out. Well, no, I see I'm moving too far backwards. Last idea of just the considerations at startup. Are there any other needs? You know, supporting access to software, learning how to log in and use the software. That parents and students are going to need help with that. You know, thinking about transportation. Maybe there are transportation needs throughout the school year that are going to be new for the students, the parents, the families. And then even just considering spiritual and relational needs, it's something to be thinking about. We don't have answers. If you've got some thoughts, what can we think about when it comes to other needs? What are some other needs that students are going to have throughout the school year?
I may have missed Emily's.
Sorry, we'll come back to you in just a second. Marcy, go ahead, Peggy.
Okay. When children are learning math, they really need hands-on materials to be able to count and those sort of things, which they may not have at home. So that's a resource that I think that they might need.
Material. Manipulatives, right? I think that's the technical term they like to use. Yeah. Okay. Marcy, you wanted to jump in. I think you wanted to respond to something Emily said.
To Emily's point. I just didn't see it on this slide, and I may have missed it on the last slide, but that idea of helping with organizational strategies. Like, I was just thinking of ways that church.
Yes, I think that needs a yes.
Yeah, I think we're going to put it here, but let's see. I think we'll cover that structured time each day, how to structure your days. Is that what you're talking about, Marcy?
Yeah.
Okay, great. We'll get to that. We're going to get to that in the ongoing. And it doesn't mean just because we put it there doesn't mean it's not a part of startup discussion. We were just trying to categorize the conversation as we went along.
Art and music support and PE.
Okay.
Those will look a little different per district. That's just kind of started to come out. They're going to have to look a little different just because of space and access. So that may not be as big of a factor, unfortunately, right away.
Well, it's interesting. Could a church, could a space, are there ways in which our communities could provide that? I mean, you know, I think it was Suzanne when we were prepping for this, she was talking about some of the thought here is almost like the VBSs. All the work we do as faith communities to put together our Bible schools. Okay, go find those people who are great at organizing vacation Bible schools and put them to work on this of after school, during school support. I mean, imagine if you had a family of 6, 5, 4, 3 kids. And just like we said, I'm going to try to support this one right now. And I don't know what to do with these other 2 because I've never homeschooled them. I don't know how to structure that. What if they could be, a couple of them could be at an activity somewhere that's safe while I'm taking care of this kid here and then I swap them out. I mean, we could get creative, and there are some seriously creative folks in our churches that know how to organize kids. We just got to put them to work.
Well, even in your Sunday schools, I mean, here's the other thought. Even if you use your Sunday schools and they became part of your PE or art curriculum, I mean, you know, they can be totally restructured to where you're climbing a ladder and there goes, you know, here goes Zacchaeus up in a tree. I mean, you know, so, being creative that way, even within your school, your Sunday schools and all of that could be the art and the music and the PE pieces. I mean, at least some of it.
So fun. All right. Well, let's keep moving.
I love VBS. They can rock this. Jill's happy. Woohoo!
It is awesome stuff.
I think that helps the church wrap their head around what you're trying to do. You're training a little bit by saying that. It's like, oh, we know how to do that. Yes, you do. I want you to tweak it a little bit. You know how to do that.
Yeah. So
something
Oh,
for
go ahead.
ongoing support. I'm not quite sure how to phrase this, but like consistency. So if someone were to be working with, you know, a specific person and they're kind of given an idea to work a prom out, and then they talk to someone else and it's different, it might be kind of confusing to parents. Or I'm thinking about, you know, especially parents that might have language barriers.
Yes.
So, you know, I guess kind of having the consistent communication.
Yeah, I think that's important. Excellent, excellent. So so we'll forgive you.
I thought I got an L in there. I kept trying.
That's okay. I think I agree with that point. I hadn't thought about that, but you don't want the mixed message going on, which is why, you know, you want the parent to drive a lot of this and support the parent, not tell the parent what to do, but right. So that concept of support and letting them drive is very, very important.
Yeah, she's teasing our how to help without hurting talking points there. So, yep, parent directed in your effort to help. Great
Well,
stuff.
and not every person who's going to volunteer or support a family may be the right one for that family. So, you know, I mean, just encouraging them that if something isn't, I mean, I don't know how we do that, but I mean, you know, that if it's not working or there's something going on, that they have the right to say, you know, and to voice that so that they can get the support that they need and their families need in order to be successful in this huge endeavor.
Right.
Yeah. So Sylvia was asking the question, like even homework groups, can you set that up? And those don't even have to be in person. It could be online. It could be that you've got somebody who's willing to just kind of do office hours and be available between certain times to help kids. And, you know, they're a math expert or they're an English person or they love to just read and they want to read a book with kids that have to read it for a class. You know, so there's just great opportunities there to build that up. Now, that being said, we definitely want to stress this next one on tutoring and engagement. And we cannot stress enough the importance during this time. And crisis times are, they bring us together as a community, but they're also high risk times. And we're working with vulnerable populations. And so as you're doing this work, we cannot stress enough the importance of background checks and screening and appropriate oversight to protect everybody involved. Each person, the volunteers, those being helped. So definitely don't, just because somebody comes along and says, well, we want to help, great, but make sure you do this with wisdom and due diligence. And while we're talking about that, I don't know if this is true. Oh, go ahead.
I wanted to ask Marcy, when you have people, is there any possibility that the school or even an organization like Everett Gospel Mission do the screening of volunteers? And I know Nancy's online. Nancy, I know your church is pretty big. I don't know if you do background checks, but for churches that are smaller, is there a way that we could coordinate these background checks so we at least have, I mean, I'm really concerned. I used to work for Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I know how easy it is to groom kids and families online. And so I'm just asking that question. Do we know anything about accessing the school's background system? You certainly could access Everett Gospel Mission. We'd be more than happy to process every application. So.
I do know that for example, I have DBA workers in my home because of my special needs kids, and they will not take a paraeducator's Mukilteo or Everett fingerprinting and transfer it. It has to be done in-house. And the law on that is pretty steep. Now I can waive my rights, but we don't want to get into that this is different. So I don't know. And I go to the same church as Nancy, and yes, we fingerprint for everything too. But it's all internal. But I don't know why different times couldn't make for different measures. They're not processing new fingerprints in the school districts right now because they don't have a vision for how to use volunteers that aren't physically on site. Does that make sense? And we're not doing physical.
Yes.
So,
okay.
But that's that would be a good connection question with district offices. That shouldn't be a hard one.
Right, because yeah.
I love what I just heard you say, Marcy. They don't have a vision And this is not, and I know you didn't say that as a critique, it's more a statement of a gap of the importance of us getting a vision. We're hoping that's part of why we wanted to drive this conversation, is building that vision and us being advocates in our community to have a vision of how can we do this near us, and having vision to do that. So important that we have to lead in that idea and put forth the concepts, and maybe the idea you throw out doesn't get accepted, but it's the idea that got it moving forward. And we all have to have something to get our hands around and work with. And maybe, you know, it's going to look totally different than what you suggested at the beginning, but if you didn't suggest it, it wouldn't happen. So I just want to encourage you. Your idea doesn't have to be the one that ends up at the end, but it's the thing that got it started, because we all need that vision. Jill, you're up. I saw your comment. I'd love to hear more about the tutors available in the library system.
For Snow Isle libraries, and I just checked that Everett Public Library doesn't have this particular service, but everyone is eligible for a library card with Snow Isle libraries. It's called Help Now, and it offers a number of learning and education systems, to include a live tutoring from someone who is contracted and a former educator, or in some case an educator, to help with math skills. They're writing their papers, you know, all different things. They can upload assignments to get feedback. They can do the same for adults. They can upload their resume to have it reviewed, you know, pointed out. So they don't do corrections. They, you know, make suggestions. So the library has a lot of support systems for free if you have the computer and you have the solid bandwidth right now. But there is a vetted free tutoring resource out there.
Oh my.
Yay.
That's great.
Do schools know that?
Yeah, we do outreach and presentations to the schools all the time.
Okay.
But it's the kind of thing where you don't hear it until you're ready to use it. You know, like you can tell people about it 4 or 5 times, but until they need it,
Right.
Yeah.
It's noise in the background until you need it, right?
So I have a question. Are they still accepting people to be cleared through that system to be tutors? Because
we hire, it's a company called Help Now, and so, you know, we contract for the service. So we don't run the service. We just pay for the fee for access as a part of library resources. So we don't actually run the program. We let folks who are education professionals, you know, they run the service. So we have a lot to offer, and that are, you know, for free. And right now is virtual, but you can pick up books and DVDs and materials. All libraries, to include Everett Public Library, are offering that curbside pickup.
It's a great help. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Jill, I wonder about the funding for that programming. Is it well funded, or is that an opportunity for support?
It's funded. It's a part of libraries' materials and collection budget. So for Snow Isle libraries, because we offer it, we've had it for probably a decade. It's not something that's going to be subject to loss of funding.
Okay, great.
That's
excellent.
Great.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. All right. I was thinking, I mean, I know we've heard this term parateachers, and some of you may or may not know what parateachers are. I don't know that much, but I was in a prayer group, and we had a couple educators in there that were talking about parateachers, and in their district, the parateachers were at risk because they're hourly employees that if funding goes away, they would be the first to be removed from the system. And so as we're thinking about ways we can support, if there are parateachers out there that have lost their jobs and your community has funds to support that, and you're looking for people to tutor, go get them and figure out how you can go support them and hire them to do that work.
And that could be a collective. That could be 4 churches, right? So that's not the burden of one. That could be a collective functionality that happens. So, you know, that's way outside the box. But we thought, why not? Why not?
Yeah. You know, this next up, structured activities, just thinking about, okay, just non-education activities. And we're all talking, you know, we hear this new phrase, the screen fatigue is the phrase we hear a lot these days, and just being on a screen all the time. And you know, I do know a number of people that just, this is exhausting. and just being on a screen, it's really exhausting, and there's going to be kids that are exhausted that way. So figuring out how could you organize even activities in your neighborhood, and maybe it's a neighborhood walk. My kids are homeschooled, and we do these nature walks all the time, and homeschool parents there's websites, and they find each other and they say, we're going to go to the beach because it's super low tide out there. And they go look at all the cool creatures and find somebody who's leading them through that. And I don't know what kind of activities are going to be available this year. But that's why we get creative. Remember, because it's not a resource, it's just an innovation issue. So thinking about how you can structure, and Sylvia wants to make sure we're local, making it accessible, that it's activities that a kid could walk to, that a parent doesn't necessarily have to drive them to, but they could walk in their block down to that and join you in that activity. Any other thoughts there before we hit the last point on this page? So the last point here is we just really wanted to encourage collaboration between churches. Sorry, Sylvia. Utilize the bus driver who no longer have a job. Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Is that what you wanted me to see, Sylvia?
So talk to me about that. How would we utilize the bus driver? I like that.
I don't know, but I'm just saying they don't have a job anymore. So
they don't have a job anymore. You're right.
Even if they're just able to be a support in some way, they need a job.
Wow.
That's a good point. So could we? Is there a way, John, on here to talk about support staff at schools? What other avenues somebody might have for supporting them?
I mean, I can put anything on there. So you're just saying make sure we know what support staff are, or become aware of support staff that
may need support too. That may be willing because they've already may not be the teacher, but they're already working with kids, and so they're more apt to. So even in our congregations, right, to be able to say, if you used to drive a bus and you still want to work with kids, you should have some finesse about some skill set in that area that would be beneficial. So I thought the bus driver point was really good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they're already background checked. Yay.
Yep. They are. Yeah, that's a great pool.
Well, the lunch ladies. I mean, everybody in the school system that is working with kids have all already been vetted. So, so they're all candidates, right?
So finding them in your congregations and enlisting them to still be a part of a field that hopefully they loved and chose to be in, because of that.
And on that, the note of food systems, hopefully the reoccurring theme here is get out there and learn what's available in your community and advocate for it. So when we think about map the assets, exactly. That's asset mapping. Know what the schools in your neighborhood are actually doing with regard to food. Because, obviously we know that many children they utilized the food system to make sure they had the nutrition they needed throughout the year. And now we're faced with something that looks different. So what are the school districts doing that might be still supporting that? I don't have those answers, but that's our job to go get them, figure that out, what's happening in your neighborhood. And are there any gaps? I mean, that's what we're always trying to figure out here is what are the gaps that we as caring citizens and kingdom members have an opportunity to fill.
Well, and I'm wondering, when you have structured activities, I wonder if there's things that churches could provide that somebody like a student could use just within their family, like, I don't know, basketball, baseball glove, and a ball, because some people are not going to want to be out and about, but they might need some equipment to kind of.
Oh, I love that. I love the equipment idea. I love that, finding out what their family enjoys doing and providing that recreational equipment. I love it. Back in the day, way before they had video games, we used to play this crazy, stupid game called croquet. Did anybody play that dumb game where you took the mallet and hit the ball? I know it just may make a comeback. Or I love ping pong. I was a ping pong player. Anybody else play ping pong? So having a ping pong, if you had the room for it, would be a great thing to have in your house.
Tetherball.
I love it. Lunch ladies.
So, okay.
You said
lunch ladies doing science experiments. I love that.
Here in Everett.
Remember tetherball? I mean,
tetherball.
Have a pole and a ball on a rope. I mean,
I love that idea of thinking about activities equipment.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and
here's
music,
music. Yeah.
music equipment too.
Equipment, yeah,
Love
music.
it.
Mhm.
Oh, I love it.
Musical
It makes me think about
instruments.
musicians who have been playing on their decks and bands that are getting together.
Yes.
There's nothing. You know what? If you're musical and you got some friends, get out there and do a jam in the front yard and invite the neighborhood. It's
At our church,
speaking of musical people.
Yeah. Go, Dan.
we're a very arts oriented community, and our auditorium is really set up as a functioning theater. And so we've got a lighting system and curtains and props. And so one of the things we've begun in our own little conversation, this conversation happening in our staff is, can we, to support the arts, can we get a drama program going? Because that's not going to be the first priority of most districts at this point. So leveraging the facility that we have.
And drama is so important for building confidence. I would say that, it seems frivolous to some people, but that's where a lot of confidence is built, right? And gets drawn out that you wouldn't normally see. So,
okay,
John, don't forget to put music instruments on there, please.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. The other thing I was, as we were thinking about these creative, all right, let me.
Oh, yeah. I bet you're right, Jill, that there are a lot of people that would be donating their equipment.
Yeah. So here's a couple other things to think about. So I remember when I was in youth group, we would do video scavenger hunts. And I was thinking about when COVID started here in North Everett, people were putting teddy bears in the windows for kids to just go walk out in the neighborhood and find. So what would it look like if your church or your neighborhood group created scavenger hunts throughout the year? And you even could have like awards, and you could do video where people are making videos. They can keep social distancing, and then you get online together and you host a viewing of all the videos. I mean, we in churches are so creative of activities because we've been trying to figure out how to entertain people into the kingdom for decades. So we know how to do this.
So the Father shut down the world so we could get busy with all we've been time with.
And I thought when you were talking about ping pong tables, I was thinking about here in Everett, in the summer, they do pianos on the streets.
Yeah.
And there are pianos all over. Well, what would it look like if your church had a couple ping pong tables and just checked with the city and started moving them around and just kind of put them in neighborhoods, and they just sat there for a week, and then you move them to another place. And so we're just creating lots of variety in our communities and excuses for people to get out, kind of say hi from a distance and then go back. And again, innovation. I love what is being sparked here.
And I think, part of it is us saying to the world, through us, God sees you, and we see you too. And we don't want you to ever forget that as we're moving through our community. See us, see him, he sees you, right? It's a powerful message.
Absolutely.
So last point on this slide, your church might not have all the resources it needs, but it doesn't mean your church with another church or with two other churches don't have the resources to do some of these things. So this is not a time for our churches to be building our walls and worrying about the name on the church.
Yeah.
Because it's not the name on the church unless it says Jesus Christ that we're worried about. So this is about churches coming together and figuring out how to pool our resources to address the needs in the communities we're given. So we just want to encourage you to do that too, and find your allies that are like you, thinking like you in the churches near you. And so you can inspire this collective decision at a neighborhood level. All right. Any other thoughts here before we move on to there's just some things to think about as we think about helping so we don't fall into the traps of hurting. All right. Well, as we move forward, we just we wanted to, maybe some of you have seen this. This is like Poverty 101 in a visual of the many things that we cover in Poverty 101. And we just wanted to remind you, as we're thinking about helping, these are all the kinds of things that are in the background. These elements of motivation and drama and empowerment, our mutual brokenness, our inherited assets and developmental assets, binary thinking, our biases and prejudices, all these things we as helpers are bringing to the table. And so are those that we have come to help. They're bringing those things to the table. So keep these in mind. Continue to grow in your awareness of all these elements in yourself. And then learn how to, as you've grown in that awareness, learn how to draw that out of those that you're walking alongside, so you can know how best to serve them. So just a quick reminder, and then let's think about a few traps. Helping that hurts. You know, you've heard us talk a lot about MART identity. This is definitely a time when we want to be careful not to reinforce MART identities, either in ourselves as having the helper or the God complex, or those that are being helped, that they're the needy and need help. We definitely want to say, no, this is an opportunity for us to serve each other. That, you know, I might have a resource and I need to help as much as you need that help, or I need to be helped by you as much as you think I need to help you. That we want to provide redemptive experiences and not reinforcing experiences of that MART identity. You know, learn and practice listening. So here's a great question that Sylvia's alluded to a couple times. Just asking the question of, what is your dream for your child this year? To me, that's just, when we're in stress, we don't think about what my dream is. We think, oh no, I'm just trying to survive. So what if you could give some space for somebody to dream for a moment, and then from that you can hear your direction from them of how they can support how you can help them support their child's education this year. So giving them that space to be able to dream and not let the limits of resource be the limiting, but okay, just tell me what it is and how can I help? It's a great question, isn't it, Marcy? It's Sylvia's question. And here's the thing, versus what do you need? Okay, so what do you need is an asset-based question, and it's a question that highlights deficiency. It's where are you lacking, and then how do we need to fix that lacking? So that's just reinforcing the MART identity. But they have dreams.
They have dreams. So the secondary question to what is your dream for your child this year, what barriers do you see that might prohibit that, right? So that also is taking the problem out of being about them and their lack of providing and just talking about barriers, right? So that's real important to hear that. And here, I want to say another thing. When we have walked in MART identity for a while, any marginalized group, we don't have a voice. We don't know how to use our voices sometimes as adequately. In our own safe environment, we do. We don't have any trouble articulating it. And I'm speaking as someone who comes from a very strong MART identity. It takes a little bit to get your voice. So be mindful that just because you ask somebody and they say, well, I don't know, right? Get a little bit more creative and say, wow, gosh, let's just think, right? Because it's hard to articulate that when for the majority of your life, you've been spoken to from a place of being the needy one. So that's just just to throw that little tidbit out.
Yeah. And here's one you might not be thinking about, but if you're particularly working in a community with persons of color and minorities, look for volunteers and helpers that look like them, that can inspire that, you know, I as a person of color can succeed, and they can see those models. So that's a really important thing. Ask teachers in your schools, who can you identify that's already doing this that we might be able to employ in what we're doing in our neighborhoods that can help us do this better? Because they know. I mean, schools and teachers, they know what's happening in their communities, and they work really hard to see who the best volunteers are, who is concentrating deeply on drawing each student out. And they can be people that could recommend that for you to help you identify those and get those individuals to help you. Yeah, so here's this verse from Matthew 5:16. I think Sylvia's alluded to it a couple times. You know, in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Jill, yeah, I see your hand there.
What about asking the children or the students what their dream is? Because parents want to support their children's dreams. I mean, that's what, right?
Yep.
All their family members do. So if we know what the child's dream is, they're important. Their voice in all of this is super important because they're the students.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think Sylvia alluded to this a little bit earlier, when you're working with those who have been on the margins and whose voices have been muted. One of the things when you ask people to dream is be persistent in keeping to show them, no, I want you to really dream. Because what we often find is somebody will give us the answer they think we want, or the answer they've been conditioned to say. So for example, You know, the point in time count happens every year, and we go out there and we ask folks, hey, why are you homeless? Because I don't have a job. It's the number one reason that individuals experiencing homeless say why they're homeless. Now, when I get to know that person, I can identify about 5 other things before their joblessness that's contributing to their homelessness. But I don't have a job is the conditioned acceptable answer. And it's the easy one to say it and get you to go away. Because the last 10 people have asked me to dream and they didn't help me do anything with it. And so just because they give you an answer, keep creating that environment that really does allow them to flourish. You want to create that garden for dreaming where they feel safe and flourishing and growing.
Are you done, John?
I'm done. We could talk about that verse if you want to talk about that verse a little bit.
Well, no, I just was curious as to, just from the group, do you feel like there's been enough discussion that you might be able to go away and either further develop what you're thinking about doing, or did you hear something in here that a niche for you in any of the discussion? Has this been helpful in trying to help your group, your church, your whomever really reach out and do some ministry in regard to education?
Yes, very much so. Where we are is currently our approach to this exists on a Post-it note about 8 names of I was going to do this with our community. So we can some parents, get some students together and do exactly this. And now I'm just going to send this recording to them and say, hey, you do this, then we're going to get together and figure out what parts of this are us, what niches can fit. We can't do all of it. Nobody can do all of it, but we can find the parts that fit us. So this is going to serve as the springboard for our specific conversation.
Amen. Thank you, Dan. So Nancy, I hope you're still here, Nancy.
I am, Sylvia.
Oh, hi. Does any of this help with what you guys are thinking about at North Shore?
Yes, and I just was thankful that Marcy Balker is here. I think that's providential. We know each other and we're in the same church. As I was listening to all of this, it reminded me of, it was amazing, and I don't remember exactly who put it together, but there was something through the city of Everett that had a coordinated for distributing masks. They had this whole coordinated thing. Do you know who that organization was?
Wasn't it out of Providence with the Healthier Communities Initiative?
Yes.
Yes.
And I just was thinking, I don't even know how you would do it, but I just thought it would be, because no one can do it all.
That's right.
If there was somehow, like, that coordinated thing was wonderful, because people that were making masks, they picked up your masks, they got them donated. I mean, I just thought that's a huge organizational piece, but I just thought, wow, if there was a way to do something on that scale for Everett, how amazing. Like a resource bank of tutors, a resource bank of, so as each church is doing their bit, they're somehow coordinated centrally. I don't know how you do it, but.
Well, you know what, Nancy, you say that, I wonder, Scott Forsland is the head of that. And, I do sit on the Providence board. I might be able to call him. But I wonder if there's a way to see if there's anything either already going, or just throw some of these ideas out to Scott to see if they might be willing to coordinate some aspect of it.
Because, like with the mask thing, how many people in how many different places were making masks and wanted to get them out to places? Or even if they can't coordinate, could they help us? Or
right. No, I think that's a really good point. So John, you're going to jot that somewhere for us to, because I can talk to Scott about that and just see what they have on their agenda, because they're all about healthier communities and coordination. So they really do maybe have that infrastructure there that they might allow us to access. So.
Because why reinvent the wheel, right? If something is being done well by someone,
yes,
reinvent the wheel. And if we could all then pick our area that we were going to specialize in, but somehow get it all coordinated, how marvelous.
Yeah, good point.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
There are groups offering mask and hand sanitizer distribution in the city of Everett. VOA is offering it. I'm pretty sure on nextdoor.com I saw that either one of the firehouses, I think it was one of the firehouses, was doing a distribution. So there are groups out there. You know, Providence definitely did the Million Mask initiative, but there are groups out there that are doing it. So the tricky part is how to get everybody together and get the word out. And, you know, that's always the communication part. It's always the tricky part.
Yeah. I couldn't see the whole comment from, is it Shay?
Looking at churches working in their own communities, but also churches working collectively to make bigger impact.
Yeah.
I love the opportunity we have as churches to work collectively here and make a statement in a suffering world is, I just can't stress it enough. I mean, I'm inspired. I'm excited to see it happen, and I can't imagine the impact it would really have if we do it. You know, so Nancy, as you were talking, I was thinking, well, you know what? Some church out there is probably really, really great at organizing resources. And another church might be really, really great at doing X and another at Y. And so figuring out how to collectively draw all those skills together, kind of like a body,
yes,
would be amazing.
And then just to call it, and then just to call it the church. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yes.
Yes.
The church.
Yeah.
Yes. The heart cry of the Father, right? That you may be one. Yeah. That you may be one.
Yeah, so we don't need a church name. We just can call it the church.
It's the church doing what it does. Oh, I like the word.
You know, and I was just thinking, you know, we were talking earlier, I had devotional on Monday, and one of the things I brought up is what seeds are we planting that after COVID is over that we can still be doing. And so this is the church's opportunity to be able to advance itself in its community and minister in a real tangible way. So these are all seeds we can plant now for the future after this is all, you know, COVID is over.
Amen. So I know we're almost at the end, but I just want to say this is about doing it a new way based on our poverty alleviation knowledge and paying attention to trauma-informed care, right? Because we can do a lot of transactions, but we're really about applying what the Holy Spirit has given us in the last year to the way we implement what we do. So I'm thrilled that you're here. I know that God's going to birth something. I don't know what. In every gospel mission, we just consider it an honor and a privilege to help in the equipping. So Dan, I really do appreciate your fact that if you had this, you would give it to other pastors to look at or other groups to help launch the conversation. That's all we want to do is launch the conversation. You know, we've trained over 1,000 people in this community in poverty alleviation. We need to call them to the table because there's work to be done. And this has been the best session to hear your comments, to hear how you add to, how you expanded my knowledge, my understanding, my respect. So I honor you guys tonight and thank you for joining us. We'll come back. Now, we're coming back. Are we coming back next week or the week after? Maybe in 2 weeks.
Yes, no, we're going to try. I think we said the 29th or next week.
Yeah, we want to hear what's birthing. We want to hear what's birthing out there. And hopefully some of us have been thinking about, if there's some new information they didn't have or we need to go get. And we're going to bring that back again, but start letting the Spirit birth what this is for you and the people around you as we move forward so that these kids have the best opportunity and these families to not be left behind through COVID in their education. That's our goal. Give them what they need.
So now it's time to go to work.
Yeah.
Time to go to work.
It is definitely time to go to work.
Meeting next week, next Thursday, right, John?
So next Thursday, we have a couple things we're going to try to accomplish. One is we really wanted to see if we could get some parents that are going to be deeply impacted by this to do a parent panel. So we're going to look for like 4 households to get on and just talk to us about what they're concerned about, maybe what their dreams are for this coming year, and just give them a chance to share with us so we can hear some things that we can learn from. And so that'd be the first half. And then we'd love the second half of that discussion to really be around, okay, so you've had a week, what's happening? What's been boiling out there and brewing that you're going to put into practice now and just start hearing. And then we're going to see where we go from there. Maybe we're going to bring in some other, it was so great to have Marcy on today. So maybe we get some teachers in to help us think about what they need. We identified all these different stakeholders. We could just start, let's bring in stakeholder here every week and just hear from them so we can learn from them what needs to happen. And then the other thing is, Nancy, if you're willing, Nancy was just asking if you can drop what church your go-to or you represent, so we can just start seeing what churches we have represented here in this group over in the comments. That would be great. We'll save those comments and we'll be able to share those out with everybody, so you'll be able to see that. And I think,
Don, with our panel, didn't we say that if you have somebody in your fellowship who's willing to dialogue with us, who's experiencing poverty and is willing to share with us so that we could better just serve our community and our neighbors, let John know, because we'd include them on the panel, right? So
love that.
we want to hear.
And then you saw the email that they were asking for email addresses so they can continue the conversation, John, amongst each other.
Yeah, so if you're comfortable, send me an email that you're comfortable, that you want to be on an email list, and then I can forward that out to everybody that was willing to be on that email list, and we'll coordinate that together and kind of start to create a group. And well, maybe there's a non-Facebook option out there to start creating a group of us to work together using some other non-Facebook software.
Different platform.
Yes. I'm thinking of Tiny or Mighty Networks. That's as one of the platforms I'm thinking of that could be.
Oh no, John, not another platform.
Not another
platform.
Okay,
Number 6.
Don't let me out. I am the platform Kraken, so don't let me out.
You guys are wonderful. Thank you for joining us. It's been a joy.